2 years ago, a man named Toby Fox released an indie RPG called Undertale after his extremely successful Kickstarter. Little did he know that with the release of that game would come such things as this. The Undertale fandom. Hello everyone, this is the RPG Monger, and welcome to the Season 1 finale of the Fandom Files, the bi-weekly series where I take you into the dark, unseen crevices of each and every fandom. Well, I really can't avoid it any longer, can I? Ever since I started this series, I knew deep down that one day I'd have to return to this fandom. And yes, I mean return. Around 2.5 years ago, I was part of the problem within the Undertale fandom, with it being one of the most regrettable periods of my entire life. So along with everything I've obtained by scouring the internet, today you're also getting the perspective from someone who was deep in the fandom at its height of toxicity. Oh, and if you haven't noticed yet, I am a bit sick, so my voice is gonna be a bit more hoarse than usual. That being said, however, not all members of the fandom were like how I was. While unfortunately overshadowed by their louder counterparts, there were many straight up mature normal people within the Undertale fandom who just solely loved the game for what it was. Nothing more, nothing less. Before getting to the soulless acts committed by certain people within the fandom, what is it that got the snowball rolling? Or hell, what is it that made the snowball so big to begin with? It was just a Kickstarter RPG after all. It'd take more than just that to create such a large following from day one. I mean, who even is Toby Fox at all? With over $50,000 going into his Kickstarter, he must have had fame elsewhere, right? Well, look no further than another work on the internet that, like Undertale, is infamous for its, let's just say, large following. Homestuck. Because believe it or not, Toby Fox was quite the prolific composer for it, creating such songs that I'm sure you're quite familiar with by now. But going even farther back, Toby was also quite the figure on the Earthbound fan site Starman.net, where under the alias Radiation, he would manage the PK hack forum all the way until 2011. And that's not all, as it was once he made the now infamous Earthbound Halloween hack for Starman.net's 2008 Halloween Fun Fest that he became well known in the public eye. So considering the diverse following he'd built over his years of participating in fandoms, Undertale practically already had a fandom before it had even come out. Hell, part of Undertale was even developed in Andrew Hussey's basement. So either way, Undertale was destined to have some sort of a large fandom from the very start. No question about it. However, like every fandom, when the game was released, the fandom was absolutely wonderful, with people just sharing their love through discussions and fan art. Overall, the game was just accepted with open, loving arms, even by critics, with it getting really spectacular reviews. And unfortunately, it would ultimately be those reviews that would inadvertently lead to one of the first issues within the fandom: YouTube. Since with a game like Undertale not only having a large following, but great reviews as well, a Let's Player would be crazy not to jump on the bandwagon. And jump they did, because soon enough, if you played or even talked about video games on YouTube, Undertale would find its way into your content one way or another. I mean, normally, this really wouldn't be a problem, as at this point, so many big trendy games have come and gone that it's just become a routine. Even now with Doki Doki Literature Club. But Undertale was different, or should I say, its following was. For context, one of Undertale's most defining features was its feature of being able to play the entire game without killing a single monster, and by giving each monster their own unique traits and personalities, I'd honestly say it had a big hand in the game's success. Though with this, you could of course still kill some or every monster in the game, resulting in different endings and outcomes. Well, with this, as you may have guessed, by not killing any monster, you get the best ending. So in come the Let's Players, who go into the game not knowing any of this, making choices they want to make within the game. Nothing wrong with that, right? Well, not according to some very vocal fans, as they and those who joined them began one of the first major problems within the fandom: the notion that there is a quote-unquote correct way to play Undertale. While there are many cases of certain people from the fandom just about harassing Let's Players who didn't play the game just like like how they wanted, it'd have to be the situation surrounding Markiplier that's the most prominent. Like nearly everyone in the Let's Player community, he too started playing the game when it was pretty new, with its fandom at the time exploding tremendously. Though unlike everyone else, he only made 2 videos and never touched it again, at least until the following year. But why is that? Well, by the second video already, the poor guy was getting mass criticized and even harassed for such minute things as giving Sans a redneck voice and just the general choices he made while playing it. It only got worse too, as considering he wanted to go the genocide route of the game, the backlash against letting the guy play a game how he wanted was unlike anything ever seen before. Like I said, he did eventually return to the game to play it how he wanted to, but the fact that this happened was just plain unnecessary. Not to mention, like I said, while he's probably the most prominent, Markiplier's case is not an isolated one. There would be streamers who'd get actual death threats just because they had killed Toriel in their playthroughs. Going even beyond the cases of streamers and Let's Players, these sentiments against the mere notion of killing characters, or God forbid doing the genocide run, had at one point become so widespread that people actually developed a stigma surrounding those who had chosen to play the game like this. From insults like calling them horrible people to comparing them to child abusers and murderers, the lengths these hopelessly blind people would go was astounding. Though before I go on to the nightmarish stories, I should address one other issue with the fandom that I'm ashamed to say I was a part of. If you've participated in online communities, I'm sure that you're all quite familiar with stuff getting old fast. Like when a friend recommends a show to you that you just don't want to watch, but they keep on persisting, going surprising lengths just for you to watch their beloved show. Well, the same thing happened with Undertale. I would know, since I used to be one of those people who'd persist relentlessly. But it wouldn't just be people clearly overstepping boundaries in the attempt to drag someone new into the fandom. It would also be such things as inserting Undertale into just about everything in their daily lives, from addressing people in the voices and mannerisms of characters to spamming references to people who clearly didn't care at all for the game. Overall, I and many others had let our obsession with an indie RPG game actually alter the way we acted. And let me just say to all of you out there that doing such things as this is never, ever a good idea. Not only did I basically ruin the game for my friend who avoided playing solely because of how annoying I was, but there are a whole slew of people who have grown to despise the game just due to people like me acting like utter buffoons. Oh, not to mention the ship wars, including such interesting ships like Sans and Papyrus, got to extremely violent levels as well, as I'm sure you can assume why. So now everyone, it's story time. Buckle up because it's gonna be a bumpy ride. To start off, here's a story that actually came from one of you all, and let me tell you that it truly shows how bad the Undertale hatedom was at its height. Back in December 2015, only a few months after the game had come out, the Undertale fandom was in full bloom, and at the time, all sorts of art was being produced from all sorts of people, with the protagonist of this story being one of those said people. Well, at the time, the artist in question was admittedly a bit of a Sans fangirl and drew art that was, well, a bit on the fetish side of the spectrum, if you catch my drift. But hey, you know, they weren't hurting anyone by it, and it was their art. Who cares, right? Well, all was going smoothly until one day, a friend notified them that their art had been stolen and slapped right onto a YouTube channel whose sole purpose was to harass and demean others. Of course, when faced with situations like these, our artist chose to ignore it and went on with their life. But unfortunately, it only got worse. More and more people began to harass them, telling them such things like how they were a disgusting human being and that they should cut themselves, all because of some art that they drew. And after their art was stolen many more times and the harassment grew to unprecedented levels, it only got worse. One day, they got some random guys saying the usual insults they had become accustomed to getting. But this is where it gets absolutely idiotic. Just to get the poor artist to delete their account, he took screenshots of their entire gallery gallery and displayed them on such sites like Instagram for the world to see. Needless to say, this was the final nail in the coffin, because after that mess, the artist completely deleted their DeviantArt along with all the art on it. I mean, really, how much of a lowlife do you have to be to harass someone online that severely just because you don't like their art? I mean, why do you even care in the first place? Though as much as it pains me to say, that incident doesn't even hold a candle to what I'm about to tell you all. My friends, this upcoming tale is probably one of the most sinister and bizarre that I've ever discussed on this series ever. But I will have to include a warning for the squeamish, since this really isn't for the faint of heart. All good? Without further ado, let's get into it. Never accept food from strangers, under any and all circumstances, since this entire situation could have been avoided if the victim abided by this warning. Well, it all happened in a convention within Taiwan, where a popular artist was attending. Like many on the internet, the artist drew a lot of fan art, with some of it pertaining to Undertale. Though with that Undertale fan art, the artist particularly drew a lot of fan art for a certain ship within the fandom. Sounds pretty normal to me. Well, at the convention, somebody offered the artist a gift out of a supposedly kind gesture. Lo and behold, the gift was a homemade cookie. How sweet of them. Like most people given cookies, the artist didn't waste any time partaking in the sugary goodness, though to their dismay, it was all a sinister trap. Within the cookie, unknown to the artist, the scumbag had actually secretly hidden needles. You heard me right, needles! Immediately after biting down, the needles pierced directly through the artist's tongue, causing immense pain. This, everyone, is a crime committed because somebody didn't like a ship. If the artist hadn't acted so quickly and gotten the needles out of their mouth, their life could have truly been in danger, all because of some fan art. The fact that people will act this deranged because they disagree with fan art of a pairing of fictional characters is absolute madness. And to all of my content creators out there, whether you make videos or you make art, never ever accept food or consumable items like a cookie at a convention from a stranger. Even if they tell you that they're a huge fan, just refuse politely, because the thought of another scenario like this happening is probably one of my worst nightmares ever. It really is a shame that a game like Undertale could end up leading to so much obsession and disarray when the entire point of the game was friendship. However, thankfully, not everyone completely missed this mark, because Undertale, despite all of this, did lead to a lot of good. Countless friendships were made with this game as the catalyst, hundreds of fans created absolutely stunning fan art, and the fan projects surrounding this game were frankly incredible. Even throughout all of these bad eggs, it really is wonderful to see how people still enjoyed the good parts of the fandom to the fullest. But right now, to start wrapping things up, I want to leave a message for all of those whose experiences of the game, or even opinions in general, were tarnished by idiots like me. If you've played Undertale and you dislike the game, then that's no issue there. But please, don't judge something because you've had a bad experience with its fandom. If anything, that's how a lot of hatedoms are born. And on the topic of hatedoms, please, if you can't do anything to cease your pointless hatred, just keep it to yourselves for a change, you know? At the end of the day, whether you justify it because something like a ship isn't right, or some other dumb garbage, all you're really accomplishing is providing unnecessary stress to another person's life. Another person who really never did and never will do anything to harm you, or anyone else for that matter. Hell, who knows? Maybe playing Undertale will actually teach you a thing or two about being kind. That's the game's motto after all. Well, there you have it. It really was only a matter of time until I covered this fandom, considering Undertale was actually the start of my channel, more or less. Anyways though, I really do have to keep thanking you guys for all the stories you've DM'd to me on Twitter. Please keep sending them, because I plan to feature a ton of them in the near future. And do remember to leave your worst Undertale fandom stories in the comments below, so I can feature my favorite in the next episode of the Fandom Files. Here's my favorite from the last episode. My FNAF story was one hell of an experience. During my time in FNAF, I saw many FNAF artists on DeviantArt who wanted to draw their own original art, or even art from other fandoms, get messages from their fans asking for more FNAF. Even when these artists would say that they wanted to do their own thing, these people would still ask and ask. Some just removed all FNAF content and made posts saying they're done, but some even deleted their DeviantArt and wouldn't dare post their new account because because these people who wanted more FNAF would still beg for it. Though my experience with FNAF was with haters, and this hater was an ex-friend at my school. Last year, there was a FNAF haunted house in my state, and I asked on a Skype group chat if anyone was interested to go. Well, in turn, my ex-friend along with another ex-friend of mine bullied and harassed me for still liking FNAF. All they wanted was a simple yes or no answer, and this is what I get? I ended up having to leave the group chat, but they kept adding me back to harass me for still enjoying FNAF. They'd even shove Undertale in my face, saying I should enjoy this more than FNAF. Luckily, it stopped when my best friend to this day stepped in and told them to stop. As of now, I still do like FNAF, but I'm not a huge fan of it anymore. First of all, it's always a shame when you have to deal with people not accepting that you want to change your content. It's honestly not even something directly linked to fandoms, but just an issue any content creator has to face at some point or another. But harassing and bugging someone just because they like something you don't is never a good thing to do. Will people ever accept that opinions can exist? All in all, before I move on to my outro, I really do have to thank all of you for making the Fandom Files what it is. The support you guys have shown this little series of mine is incredible, and hey, if you want season 2 to come out as soon as possible, leave a like. It helps way more than you could imagine. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, do subscribe, and today's cool thing of the day is the man, the myth, the legend, Toby Fox. I mean, come on, how could I not salute this man when talking about the Undertale fandom, as you really do have to feel sorry for him. Can you imagine what it'd feel like to have droves of people use your game as a reason to act like utter idiots? I couldn't even dream it. But besides that, I just have to thank Toby Fox for making such a wonderful game that impacted most people for the better. Above all, thank you, Toby Fox, and best of luck in any of your future game developing ventures. So that being said, I'm the RPG Monger, and don't forget that each and every one of you are fantastic. By the way, Sans isn't Ness, come on, really?